Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with a really nifty release that I've gotten a lot of requests for. It's the Beethoven reorchestrated by Mahler collection here, and I hope it's the first of two because there's a lot more that Mahler did. Mahler orchestrated all the Beethoven symphonies except number 4. I think 5 overtures and some other goodies as well. But anyway, it was a lot. And so there's room for more here. The performances are by the Deutsche Staatsphilharmonie, Rheinland-Pfalz, there, under Michael Francis. And it's a co-production between Capriccio, there's Capriccio, see Capriccio, and SWR Kultur. And boy, is this fun. Now, I was very surprised because I got a little comment from one of you saying, "Oh, if you hate this, you're really going to hate this thing. The playing sucks. The orchestra's horrible. It's just disgusting." No, that's totally wrong. That's completely untrue. Totally and utterly untrue. Are these great Beethoven performances? Well, no, but do they get the point across? Yes. A couple of them are a little snoozish. I mean, the Coriolan Overture is boring. I know, straight out. Quite dull. The first movement of the 7th, also, okay, it could have more pizzazz. Although the finale, as you'll hear in a moment, is marvelous. But, basically, they're very good, solid performances, and the point of them is to let us hear what Mahler did, and that we certainly do. Now, let's talk for a minute about what Mahler's intentions were. Because, Mahler was the greatest symphonic orchestrator that ever lived, and if you're looking for something like the Schoenberg-Brahms piano quartet with xylophones and harps and glockenspiels and celesta and all this stuff, you're not going to hear that. Mahler was incredibly respectful of Beethoven's intentions. He wanted you to hear the melodies with clarity. He wanted you to hear the bass lines with clarity. Most of his modifications are to the balance between woodwinds and strings, to the brass parts, because Beethoven, of course, had brass instruments that couldn't play the tunes because they were so limited, and he would start and they would drop out, as in like the Eroica, the first movement, where you have to stop the trumpets from playing the tune. And some people actually made the completely stupid argument that was Beethoven's intention. I mean, come on, that he wouldn't have used the trumpets if he could have. Nonsense. Anyway, the truth of the matter is that Mahler is interested in clarity of texture, clarity of bass lines, clarity of counterpoint. And so he diddles as necessary to create clarity and the long melodic line. And he does it really, really well. I have to say, these are, I think, entirely valid and worthwhile versions of these symphonies. And they ought to be played because they sound splendid. My goodness, they sound good. I mean, and natural, completely natural. They sound more natural than a lot of Beethoven's own orchestration often does. And I am not somebody who subscribes to the notion that everything that Beethoven did was absolutely intentional, and so his the text is holy writ, and it all has to be played that way, which is, of course, what the historically informed people are trying to tell us ought to be, because they work perfectly well, just the way Beethoven wrote them, and you don't have to change a note. And I'm saying, well, no, you don't have to change a note, but if you can, and it sounds better, and it respects the aesthetic and the intentions and the coloristic and timbral qualities that Beethoven is looking for, well, why the hell not? Especially if you have a big orchestra. I mean, there are certain aspects of what Mahler did that really should be not controversial at all. When you have a large orchestra in a large hall, as we normally do, you should double the winds. Always. I mean, Beethoven would have expected it. We know that they did it back then. Everybody did it when they had a large ensemble. They wanted as many players as possible. Haydn wanted it. We have the parts that were used for some of the larger ensemble performances, and they doubled individual solo parts with impunity. So that's not controversial, although today it would be, which is silly. I mean, that's a regular thing. The nature of Beethoven's orchestration was not to have a soloistic or virtuoso element in every single part, as you get sometime later in the Romantic period or in contemporary music. It's not, chamber symphony for 23 solo instruments, a la Schoenberg or something like that. It's not. It's not. You have strings versus the winds with the brass punctuating, and sometimes they get the tune. Mahler totally rewrites a lot of the timpani parts because Beethoven only had 2 drums that were extremely limited in tuning. And so there are obviously moments where you really want those timpani to stay in there, but they drop out because they're playing the wrong note. So Mahler puts them back. Things like that. And it sounds so natural and so easy and sensible that half the time you're not even conscious of the fact that something's being done. It's only if you can make a direct A-B comparison that you would hear it. And I have one for you. I have one that really gives you, I think, a very good sense of Mahler's sensitivity and subtlety. Yes, there are a couple sort of jazzy moments. There's some fun moments. For example, some stopped horns in the scherzo of the Fifth Symphony that make the music sound a little creepier and spookier and whatnot. But basically, it's really sensible stuff, and it sounds just marvelous. So here's a comparison between a section from the end of the development of the Seventh Symphony, the finale, which is a very good performance, by the way. They really lit into the finale. It sounds great. And a period instrumenty type one with, the Adam Fischer one on Naxos. It's exactly the same moment because I could play both of them and you can make an A-B comparison. So you will hear exactly what I mean. Let us listen first to Michael Francis with the Deutsche Staatsphilharmonie Rheinland-Pfalz doing that particular passage. And now, I'm going to hold this up again. Here is the Naxos version with Adam Fischer with the chamber orchestra on periody instruments. Now, I think it's probably indisputable that the Mahler version is a considerable improvement in the exchanges between strings and winds, the ability to maintain the dynamic balance between the sections, to sustain the long line of the melody, the directionality of where the music's going instead of the choppy period instrument kind of thing. You may like that period instrument stuff more than I do. I get it. It's okay. You can like whatever you like. But the musical qualities of which I speak are facts. They are not opinions. And the idea that Beethoven wanted what the earlier period-y type people are doing is bullshit. Total, complete, utter bullshit. I mean, if Beethoven could hear the comparison, what do you think he would have preferred? I mean, seriously, folks. These were musicians who grabbed every single possible innovation that they could because the conditions of performance that they labored under were dreadful. It's amazing they wrote anything at all. It really is. So, like I said, we don't have to get into the other performances in too much detail, except to note that you do hear the differences. And the performances, for the most part, are really enjoyable. They're enjoyable for those differences and also, for their own considerable musical merits. They really are. I have no idea what this person was talking about when he said the orchestra plays terribly. They don't. And there is plenty of room for more stuff. There really is. Actually, I just want to point out, probably the least controversial performance here is going to be
the ninth,
because nobody plays what Beethoven wrote when it comes to that symphony. It's impossible. It has to be adjusted. It's always adjusted. The only question is to what degree, whether it's just dynamics or whether it's dynamics and doublings or instrumentation or fixing other things. It needs work. So what Mahler does there is pretty much par for the course, quite frankly. But this is fun. This is really fun. I enjoyed hearing it. And if you know the Beethoven symphonies really, really well, you're going to enjoy it too. So don't hesitate. Don't hesitate at all. Have a good time. Keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.